Welcome to Africa Now, Washington's only program dedicated to covering and connecting the issues facing the entire African world. Today's show features immigration executive order and travel ban and autonomous community development in the DRC. Africa Now is next. Welcome to Africa Now. I'm your host, Muiza Muntali. Today, Africa Now begins with a conversation with Samuel Agassi, a key player in mobilizing rural communities for local development, mainly in Talo Isangi territory in the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. The discussion focuses on the failure of development aid in not paying more attention to local assets and how the population with their own initiatives in the DRC can be masters of lasting solutions for change in the country. Mr. Samuel Agassi is the founder of the organization Group of Village Organizations for Self-Development, known by its French acronym GOVA, G-O-V-A, that works to promote local initiatives and leadership. He is very committed to improving matters related to local governance in the DRC. Mr. Agassi is interested in fighting against injustice, especially traditional customs and discriminate against women, and fighting for the promotion of human rights. He works on promoting dialogue and collaboration between the two medicines, traditional and modern. He is the initiator of this Solidarity Fund for the fight against sleeping sickness in Isangi. Samuel Agassi, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And I just wanted to, before we get into the details of what you do, in terms of the community development in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, if you could give us how this initiative commenced, the GOVA, which is the Groupement des Organisations Villageoises pour l'Auto-Développement, which is and that had in French.
Yeah,
can you tell our listeners
thank you for speaking French.
Yeah,
we started GOVA in 1992, trying to correct what we saw from the big organizations coming in. What we saw, it was two big mistakes, what we considered as mistakes. The one, everything was relying totally on the foreign aid, so that if the aid is withdrawn, everything collapsed. So it was really a very, very big weakness. The second one, what people used to call community initiatives, was taken by only intellectuals. It's almost the same when the group of intellectuals decide to leave the village, everything collapses. So we decide to correct those two weaknesses. That's why we decided to create a GOVA.
And so, and this was 1992. And when you're talking about development organizations, these are international development organizations, right? That came in, and then they wouldn't work with the people on the ground. Is that what you meant? Is that what you're saying?
Not only international NGOs, even some local NGO, they try to think in the place of the people. They came in with their own agenda, with their own programs, with their own schedules. So they didn't have much time to look at what people were doing, to look at their values, to listen to them, to try to understand what was their agenda. So it used to be their projects, it used to be their programs, and not programs from the community.
Mm-hmm. So they didn't take the experiences and the knowledge of the local population into action.
I think most people, especially as they're intellectuals, they came from university, they thought that they knew everything, so they have to transfer knowledge to the one who don't have which is not true, because in the community, even from the traditional leaders, they have some kind of values. The culture of as values, they have traditional wisdom on which we can build very strategic issue development and sustainable development.
Yeah, and that's something that people above often criticize development organizations for, is parachuting in and then leaving. So I think one of the things you mentioned was that when they would come, they would they would do some things, and then they wouldn't. They'd leave when the money is run out, for instance. So the money for the project is run out, and then leave, and basically leave the project hanging. No one was that what some of the things that happened, that there'll be a project that would be started, but there was no local involvement and connection.
Yeah, that's what we saw from a lot of interventions. For them, the most important parameter is money, but to us, it's not money. It's not money. It's the people with whom you are working. It's the beneficiaries. They have to be in the center of everything, and not money in the center of everything.
And also, one of the things that was intriguing when you mentioned that you started in '92 was the fact that was during the sort of towards the end of the Mobutu Sese Seko regime. Of course, 4 years later he was kicked out.
About 5 years before Mobutu died.
Yeah, 97. But this is what was the relationship with the organization at that time with that particular government, because of it was not known for development of helping the people.
Yeah, at that time when we started, we focused on promoting good relationship, especially with traditional leaders first. And we didn't start with specific projects. We tried to build some kind of promote some kind of dialogue with the traditional leaders, and trying to create a new modality, trying to ask people to look around themselves to see what they have as assets, and the local asset and local possibilities, local capacities we can explore. So most of the time we worked on creating and building the bridge between intellectuals and traditional leaders. And 3 or 4 years later, we start involving local state representatives, and it worked very well.
Mm-hmm. And that was still during the Mobutu era, when
it was a few years before Mobutu died.
And what were some of the hurdles that you encountered at that time when you first started? Because people are always, especially at that time, you had at that time the regime was in power since 64, 65, and they were known for having a strong rule and controlling everything. What were some of the hurdles that you encountered? Were there any hurdles that you encountered?
I think, honestly speaking, the context changed a little already, because from 1990, April 24, Mobutu decides, to allow, in bracket, democracy in Zaire at that time.
Democracy in brackets, yeah.
In brackets, exactly, because he really wanted to control everything. But the reality was that he was more and more powerless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And people didn't recognize him as a good leader anymore. So it was in Kinshasa, and what was happening in the rural area, he didn't care about that.
And if you could tell listeners the geographic distance, so that people have an idea, because Congo is very big. It's
okay.
the second largest country in
Africa now, but it's not bigger than the United States.
No, it's still 1/3 the size of the United
exactly,
States.
Exactly.
Everything east of Mississippi. It's still big. It's a big country.
If you want to go to Isangi, please, you take your flight from Washington, D.C. through Europe maybe, and then you land in Kinshasa. That's the capital city of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And then you fly from Kinshasa 1 hour and 45 minutes from Kinshasa to Kisangani. And the Kisangani used to be the capital city of Oriental Province, but now it's divided in four small provinces, you know, and it's in the Chopo province. And then from Kisangani to go to Isangi, it's like 125 kilometers, not miles, kilometers. But it takes something like, 4 hours because you need to cross the river by ferry
the
twice.
Road must be bad, I guess.
It's not like your roads here, but you can go with a car.
Yeah. But so in distance-wise, from Kinshasa to Isangi is over 1,000 miles, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
So people have an idea of.
It's more. Yeah, it's more than 1,000 miles. Yeah.
So I think people have a graphic understanding of why.
And we are located at the northeast of the DRC.
And being far from Kinshasa also helped you be autonomous in a way to do things that gave you more freedom in a way from the central government.
Somehow yes, and then we don't have problem with the government. You know, we are focusing our efforts on with the local people in the rural area as they are abandoned. I think the government should be happy with us normally because there is no social services. The area is really abandoned, is almost landlocked. There is no phone, there is no internet, you know. If I have to send you email here or to call Washington, I have to go to ride 50 miles somewhere to call. So it's a very landlocked area, but we are trying to improve the life standard of people.
Yeah, even though you said that the government wouldn't have problems, but because you're independent, sometimes government sees that as a problem itself as well.
But we are helping even helping the government. You know, when people are struggling themselves to buy medicines to take to the hospital or the health center, it's the government's duty. But people are doing it. We are trying to do it ourselves. So we are helping the government.
But so you're doing something which the government should do, but they're not doing.
Yeah,
that's something. So which is and which sometimes governments don't like that you're highlighting their inadequacy.
But what can we do?
Yeah,
like now we are facing the sleeping sickness epidemics in Isangi, and people are dying. You know. And there is no international NGO. The government, is not doing almost nothing. Mm-hmm. So what do you do to let people die?
Oh, no, you're doing that.
Yeah, so we need to struggle. We need to organize ourselves to tackle that issue.
And it's exactly the right thing to do. And I was just trying to say that I was just trying to see some of the challenges that you might have because you're filling that vacuum. Sometimes governments see that as a threat, even though you're doing the right thing. But some governments, especially governments that want to stay in power, want to control power, they see that as a possible threat. And
I know. To ask a little bit this question, I know we have some problem with these people, working the MP, because they believe that what we are doing is because we are preparing a political field, which is not the case. I've never thought of being politician, but I say I have to help my community, and help my country and help Africa as continent.
And could you elaborate on the connections you have with traditional leaders and with the urban folks? What you've tried to do? What are some of the examples of how you try to make sure that there's a constant relationship with the local leaders, the traditional leaders, and the so-called educated scholars? What are some of the programs that you have instituted to make sure that there's a collaborative effort, the solidarity between the people?
Yeah, I think we succeeded in many things with the traditional leaders, and I learned a lot. Learning is not only from the university. Mm-hmm. I learned a lot, and I told friends of the Congo that maybe in 2 or 3 years I'm going to write a book on that and to share the lesson learned from that experience, from being the village and being, living with the traditional leaders. We have a project aiming at supporting our children at school, especially at the Kisangani University, and we are successful, and we didn't get any money, any single money or dollars from anyone. So this project was supported by the traditional leaders, and we are putting rice together. Each household has to give 10 kilos of rice to support kids, to support the community children at the Kisangani University. So it's thanks to the traditional leaders. Another one, and we have to recognize that in our culture, we have some negative things, especially against the women. And people in our area, women were not allowed to eat 22 kinds of meat. And then we discussed with we organized the meeting with the traditional leaders to ask them why. It was traditional leaders and intellectuals. After discussions, the traditional leaders, they gave up. They say, okay, even us, we didn't know exactly why our ancestors decide things like that, that now we take our responsibility to allow women to eat any kind of meat they want. And in the beginning, it wasn't easy for them to accept women to come to our meetings, the community meetings. But when we decide to fund, to support our children, the community children at university, the elders said, no, we are afraid of women because they are the ones who are controlling the crops, so maybe they will block the project. And then say, no, let us engage dialogue with the women, and they allowed it. They allowed it, and the project is really successful of funding the community children at university. So when we had discussion with them, they were positive. They accepted our ideas, and we are moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And you also have been in the project. You've also made efforts to have an intergenerational program where you have not just old people working on the project, but also have the young people as well. If you could elaborate a bit more on how you engage the younger generation in the work.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very important aspect you mentioned. We have our community radio, the small one, helping the community. And the director who is working there now is a young who has been supported by the community. So he decided to come back to go from Kisangani to the village, to work there 2 years without being paid, so that he can bring what he learned as academic knowledge, to give to the community. And we are, we have the support of the traditional leaders, but we have to build on the youth. But that's because it's the future of the community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the community radio, how far does it extend? How wide is it?
Yeah, it's about 50 kilometers.
50 kilometers in.
Yeah.
And it's and the people who work there are the young people from the community?
Young people, but it's open to everyone, you know. The traditional leader come if they have something to communicate. Women come. It's really a community radio. For the program depends on the community.
And I saw the person that runs it was somebody was trained by the project, right? Did somebody come?
Yeah. So we looked for some money and sent some journalists to be trained from Kisangani.
Kisangani, and this is a young person who went to school and then came back to work.
Yeah, exactly.
To work in the,
and they are not only the director and two journalists. They went to school and they are back to the village to help.
And so, as this project is an autonomous community development project, and how does that? What's that relationship? GOVA's relationship, which I'll say it again in French, is Gouvernement des Organisations Villageoises pour le Auto-Développement. And my French is a little rusty, but it's which in the initials are GOVA, which is GOVA. But what is the relationship with GOVA with the International Development Agency? How do they see this project, which is autonomous, which is controlled by the people, the grassroots people? How do they see this project?
I think I don't know how to answer that question. Maybe you can. You can find out from some local international NGOs, but honestly speaking, we are not from our side. We are not against the international agencies. I would like to make it clear.
Oh no, not saying that you're against it, but yeah.
Exactly. I'm coming, and we are being supported by some international NGOs, like Accord based in London, Development Peace in Montreal in Canada, and even here from Washington, D.C., we received some support from the National Endowment for Democracy. But when these international NGOs are looking at our agenda, respecting our agenda, our priorities, there is no problem. So what we don't agree with is, coming in with money to impose the program. So that's when it doesn't work, and it will not work.
Which many people have said that the way the structure of the way the current international donor agencies are structured, the international NGOs, is that they're designed basically to be just that, to be people coming from the north part of the world to so-called south, so-called north, so-called south, and having like total control without having any local input, which has been a major critique of NGOs.
Yeah, I think from our side we are really decided, to engage a frank dialogue, for both sides to be successful, to be happy with what is going on the ground. Yeah, and I know that a lot of international NGOs are, wasting a lot of money, millions or even billions of dollars, by the way they intervene. I would like to stress one thing, to underline in blue, in black, in yellow, in purple, that money is not the most important thing to accomplish or to implement good project on the ground. It's not the money, it's the people who live there.
And speaking of the people, how are you connecting with not just people there on the ground in DRC, and particularly in in that part of the Congo, in the northeast part of Congo, but also on the continent? How are you connecting with people who have the similar goals that your project has?
Yeah, it's a very important question. People are coming now in Isange from different directions, especially in the eastern part of Congo. We received delegation from Kindu, that's Maniema province. We received people from Buta, that's Bazwele province. We received people from Opala, from Basoko, that's neighboring territories of Isange, to come in to ask us how we started, so that we can, exchange ideas, so that we can learn from each other, because it's like general feeling. People would like to build, sustainable initiatives from the ground, and then even out of the Congo. Mabele Nabiso, our film, the film on our work was broadcast by the French TV5 from Paris for 50 French-speaking countries in the world, And before coming to United States, I received invitation from 4 African countries, especially from the West Africa. Mali, Burkina Faso, Senegal, and Benin. They sent us invitation to go there so that we can exchange ideas, we can learn from each other, because they would like to start something like that.
And finally, how would you like people here in the U.S. to be in solidarity with the work of GOVA, the work of the grassroots folks in the DRC?
Yeah. Look, we are now fighting the sleeping sickness in Isange. I'm very, very grateful to some Americans people, especially the Black Americans. I was from Virginia, from California, I think. I was a few days ago. I was in Virginia, and some people they decide from themselves, after seeing the film and listening to my presentation, they decide to give money to the project to fight the sleeping sickness. But I told them that I'm not going to take the money, because I don't want to break the rules. Our partner here is Friends of the Congo. They can give that money to Friends of the Congo, so that they have some paper as support, a receipt or something like that. They send it to Congo. When it reaches Isange, our treasurer is going to call them back to say thank you for your support. So I think this way can work to ensure transparency from both sides.
And so one way is to support the work financially through the Friends of the Congo. It said, and then what other ways?
The support is not only financially, in terms also of ideas. We don't have the all capacities. We need, for instance, we would like to start, to arrange to construct road for that area. I told you that it's landlocked. Maybe for building bridges and so on, we need some technical, capacity or technical knowledge from here.
Mm-hmm. So people to people exchange, solidarity.
Exactly.
That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And do you have any closing thoughts for our audience? How people can get a hold of your project? Where should people go to find out more information about your project?
We are living in a very rural, landlocked area. We don't have these, modern tools like website and so. But we are going to get them. But from Friends of the Congo, you can get more and more information about GOVA.
Thank you, Samuel Yagazi, for being on the show.
I think it's up to me to thank you.
Thank you. And that was my conversation with Samuel Agassi. He's the founder of the organization Group of Village Organizations for Self-Development. known by its French acronym as GOVA, G-O-V-A, that works on promoting local initiatives and leadership. And that discussion focused on the failure of development aid in not paying more attention to local assets and how the population, with their own initiatives in the Congo, in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, can be masters of a lasting solutions for change in the country. You listen to Africa Now on WPFW 89.3 FM, your Jazz and Justice station in Washington, D.C. We'll be right back.